Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Next Generation's First Generation. I'm your host, Sascha Shouties, and we got Pat with us too.
Hey, everybody.
Yay! So, Pat, what episode are we watching today?
We're watching the 11th episode of the 5th season of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Ooh,
that's called Hero Worship.
That's where we got little Timmy wants to become a big data. And not
Little
the band.
Timmy Big Data would have been a better name for this than Hero Worship.
Okay, so what we'd like you folks to do is go ahead and sync up your device. We'll give you the countdown: 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you ready? Here it comes. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. We're warping along. They lost contact with the starship Vico, exploring the black cluster. It probably got bad directions.
It's weird that they would just name something like that. It's like the black hole of Calcutta or darkest Africa almost. And man, the HD on this is moi.
Is it locked in?
Yeah. Once again, we have the same ensign up front, and I believe this is her last appearance. She was in the previous 2 episodes.
Yes, that is correct. I had a name for her. What is her name?
Ensign Schmenson. Jennifer Schmenson.
There's also another background character, a Harley Venton. That's the actor's name, as Hutchinson, and he is our transporter chief.
Yes, no O'Brien in this episode.
Yeah, he was probably off doing something fun. Non-contract day, guys. Sorry.
Well,
so they
maintained an Indian movie career the whole time he was in Star Trek. So the vessel is adrift. And we're just going to beam some folks onto it to see what happened. Now, you'd think that with something that's messed up as this, it would be all data. And we don't really see that he could be used that way until...
well, it does make sense to have a data in this environment where it's hostile to people. So you can send something in that's not going to be affected by adverse environments. There's a dead crew member with a handful of glass.
It's funny because I still think of the data as a utility, and the people around him really do think of him as a person who can learn, even though he has to constantly remind them that he's an android. And
well, in the episodes where they point out he's an android, his general acting is typically more jerky.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll do these more random head movements and eye blinks.
And now we've just watched an episode with Worf being very distant to a child who belongs to him. Data is now going to be used as, speaking of utilities, he's going to be kind of a therapy proxy for this kid that they find here.
Oh, he almost becomes a family member, to tell you the truth.
A little bit. I do like that they remain friends, but there's still a little bit of a whiff of, I'm okay now. Can I still come pet the dog that, helped me through the trauma?
It's a neat little device.
Just a
portable battery.
It's nice to see it on subtitle, because I always thought it was a word like, I think I've said this before, ODEON or ODION, Odeon.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Nickelodeon, which is not spelled ION.
No, it is not.
but it's just the letters O, D, and N.
Wonder what it stands for.
That's a good question.
Optical Data Network? Ooh.
Maybe.
I bet you if we took the time to do some quick Googling, we'd find it quite quickly. But that's not the point of the show. The point of the show is to look at squished children and remember how it felt like when we were a kid. And I tell you, he looks really squished right there. In fact, go ahead.
I think that Data probably had his fans like this that were, ultra nerds that wanted to be just like Data. I mean, Spock had him, and Data has him, and Worf did. Worf in our previous episode has those fans too. But it's funny to see you get a little kid for Worf that doesn't act like very Klingon-y other than that he growls sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But here you have somebody that looks more or less like the nerd in your Dungeons and Dragons group that just wants to fall in line and be as androidy as he can.
Yeah, you got me thinking about the fans of Star Trek, and one of the things I wish I had observed when I went to a Star Trek convention is to see which camp the participants were in. For example, when I went, I was very much in the Picard camp, and that's kind of the mindset I had when I talked to people. It was usually Picard questions and whatnot. And also Patrick Stewart was a guest speaker at this particular Star Trek con. But I'm sure it'd be kind of neat if we had people like, okay, everybody who's a Data fan, stand over here. Everybody who's a Worf fan, stand over there, and just see if we could get some kind of activity based off of which fanboy you are.
Yeah.
Like you could almost have Worf's calisthenics class.
Well, they have, I don't know if it still exists, but I had known of a group called Geordie's Engineers, which was a Star Trek fan for non-sighted kids.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that roughed up ship looks beautiful, by the way. That's one thing I always really got me excited as a little kid and watching this show was the damage, the attention to detail on the models, or even when they pulled the cover plates off of maintenance junctions and hatches and whatnot, you could see all the guts inside. They're really lucky that beam didn't just collapse while the child was dematerialized. What's holding it up if he's removed?
I think it's stuck. I don't think it's stuck on top of him. I think they would have accounted for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Data he sussed it out. Okay, you guys go back to the ship. I'm gonna do a hero mama lift.
Yep.
Actually, Data just doesn't want anybody to hear him crack a fart if he lifts something really heavy.
Wonder if he does get gas buildup inside of it. Because technically he does breathe. Oh yeah, this was directed by Patrick Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Patty Stew.
So this is one of those moments where if you were this kid, you would remember every detail of Data and lifting this beam. And he is observing Data's behavior right here. And Data is being superhuman and he is having no emotion.
And also this kid thought he deserved to die.
Yeah.
We find out that he's young enough that I think my headcanon for this is that when he was littler, he was messing with a panel, and one of his parents jokingly said, don't mess with those, you'll blow up the whole ship. And then one day he fell on one and the ship blew up and he thought that he did it.
Yep. I've run into kids like that though, growing up, where they were just had these super strict parents and something went wrong. And it kind of fell, as you would say, it kind of fell in line with their headcanon of well, I did this and my parents said it would respond this way, so it must be my fault.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed or not, but they had one of those famous transporter just barely made it instances where you have your people transporting out, and while they're transporting, a beam will fall on top of them, or like a phaser blast will go through them, or one of those in the nick of time. Cinematic effects. So here we reveal the lie that the ship was boarded. And I'm wondering why Troy doesn't pick up on the lie.
Because because his trauma is so extreme that she can't suss that out.
Or she might just know that because he's gone through trauma, he's having a hard time understanding what's real.
Well, they say later on she can't read it.
Oh, they're talking about the engineering of how this ship was ripped apart. Oh, Mr. Patrick Stewart. So you say he directed this episode? Yes, he did. I wonder if this was the first one he directed. I don't remember any others that were directed by him prior.
Yeah, maybe not. He might have directed Captain's Holiday. I don't know why I have it in my head that he directed that.
I do know that on the 6th day of recording this episode, this is when the cast found out that Gene Roddenberry had passed away, and they were sad.
Marina Sirtis's father as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same day, 10-year anniversary. And the joke was, who treated her better?
Yeah.
So as kids shows go, we've seen a number of them now. We saw Disaster, and we've seen, well, just the previous one with Baby Wharf, and we've got this one here, and we've got that other episode where the kid's mom stepped on a mine and the alien ghosts decided to take care of him. You remember that one too?
We had the Riker and the little boy episode, which I think is the best
too.
And Picard and Wesley trapped on the planet together.
Mm-hmm. So as the little kid episodes, how do you think this one kind of falls into the mix?
I don't love this one. I think it had the germs of a million good ideas inside of it that never paid off. This is a great conversation, though. Data wants to hear from Geordi about what it was like one time when he was scared, which is a great way to foster empathy. And Geordi tells him the story of he got separated from his parents very quickly before he had his visor, and it really freaked him out. And it's relatable even for sighted people. That idea that, like, if you're very, very small and your safety net just disappeared. And LeVar Burton does a great job of doing this whole dramatic moment. And Geordi doesn't get a ton of these.
He really doesn't. If anything, he's pulling his Reading Rainbow acting skills right here.
He does not. And also, I was going to say, of all of the cast of this, he doesn't ever get to do anything with. I don't think he ever acts with a kid. And you'd think he would because he's the host of Reading Rainbow.
Oh, there's some kids. More children.
Well, I mean, that was a show that had like kid co-hosts on it or anything, but he would this class that he's in is just it's just terrible. It's like the worst sub in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I'm gonna leave this toy here, and I love that he's like, this kid is not causing a disruption or anything, and he has to know he's like going through a trauma. He's all like, hey man, you don't get to build with blocks. Like, that'd be one thing if he was distracting the other kids, but he's not. Like, what's actually happening is the teacher is singling this kid out.
Mm-hmm. And then he just looks concerningly at Troy. Obviously, this guy is not a teacher. If I were that teacher and I knew that kid was going through something, honestly, I'd let him do whatever he wants as long as it's not bothering the other kids.
That's exactly what you do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to condone it, but you also don't need to put it down. Because yeah, singling him out is about the worst thing they can do. And Troy is not helping by just, oh yeah, there's this window. It's not even two-way glass. I just sit here and observe the kids.
I honestly think that Troy is an enabler sometimes of some really poor decisions when it comes to people in this show.
I agree.
Here we go. So I find it interesting that Picard and Data pick up on the ship is attacked hypothesis pretty quick when the only proof is the hearsay of a kid. Whereas Geordi says, oh, wait. Look at the evidence. The nobody beamed on. None of the entry points were forced.
That's Geordi though. Whoa, slow down.
Yeah.
But I do like that. I think this is the first mention of the Breen.
Second, actually, I hate to disappoint. The first one came up in The Loss. Yes.
But we don't see the Breen until Deep Space Nine.
Oh, man, I tell you, I wish, they could have really done so much with exposing us to the universe of the Federation. I mean, they're the flagship, so they're going to visit all these worlds. But they don't go to very many member worlds. They always go to these one-time alien worlds that we never see them again. And what they did to the Trill was really disappointing.
They invented the Trill.
Yeah, I know, but they made it seem like this trans bait and switch plot that did not age well.
We got a bad trans story coming up this season too.
Oh no. Hey, there's the model. He was able to carry it back to his quarters by himself.
That's a really fun toy.
Oh, totally. I used to have a set like that.
Platforms. I mean, I would have sold a bunch. I don't know why it wasn't ever marketed. Like, direct stamp on it.
During this show, you could, or not during the show, but like back in the 90s, they had a constructor like set where you could have these little blue plastic I-beams, and they look like construction beams from a building, and you could connect them in whatever way you wanted, and you could build these really tall structures, and you could put facades on the side. They came little plastic facades you could snap on to make your own building. Oh. And the kid just was not having it. He hates it. That's a good response of a child right there.
Yeah. But it's also a good learning experience for Data. And it sort of shows that like he's able to, build what looks like empathy, which he was not really able to do with the woman that he was dating. And that was more because he was like, I have to create a program that makes it like...
I got to interrupt you. This kid is stupid. Did you see what he just did there? He tried to put the roof on that's totally unbalanced with one pillar. I mean, even watching that as a kid, I'm just like, really? That's the best he could do?
He's not stupid. He's stressed.
I guess I just thought that was bad kid acting. I know we've covered this a couple of times. I was never a real fan when kids came on the show because they seem so relatable to me.
Yes.
If that made any sense. But here's Data is magic here. He's building this thing super fast.
I wish we'd gotten some Flight of the Bumblebee or, what's the Mozart one that's done? Dun, 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 dun.
Oh, yes. I know the one you're talking about. That was actually in one of the early episodes. The one where they go beyond space into Bubble Land.
Yeah.
And we get to see Captain Picard's grandmama, I believe.
Wrong there. I hope you can't hear my heater turning on.
No, I can't. I just built a new PC, so I'm wondering if the fan noise is gonna come through on the mic.
I don't hear it on my end, so probably not.
Woohoo!
So this is where the kid kind of decides that he's going to start emulating Data. And again, it plays into that darker idea that he has survivor's guilt, especially because he thinks it's his fault that everybody on that ship died.
I love the hallways of the ship. They're so great. But why is this kid by himself in quarters? Shouldn't he be staying with somebody?
Sometimes you got to be honest. You got to be on your own. I think that would have been an interesting discussion to see. Is, hey, let's put this kid in his own room, and he can. I mean, Data's his kind of his contact on the ship. It would have been interesting to see if it was like, you can get in touch with, with Data or with Troy by doing this. I would have honestly, because they had to add the thing that Troy can't read him, just have Troy not even be in the episode and have it be Crusher that sets Data up with trying to help the kid.
It's conference time. Everything is solved with a conference.
It's conference time. It's conference time.
We could have had an email instead of this conference.
I know.
Well, that phrase, "Did you get the memo?" is kind of dead nowadays.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they didn't go too far into that.
Well,
I wonder what happened with Mr. Timothy, if we ever heard of him again in the Star Trek universe.
I mean, he'd be the right age to be an ensign on lower decks, but he's not really in Starfleet. I love that he has replicated himself a sort of Starfleet looking uniform.
Troy's a little surprised, happy about this. Like, okay, I'll go with this. Let me see what you're doing with your world here.
I think if he acted totally the same every time she saw him, it would be really frustrating. But he's actually going through stages, which is important when you're hit with the level of grief that he's hit with.
I love how they wear green houndstooth uniforms. Absolutely love it. The most hideous jumpsuits in the show.
It's bad. They don't still have them on lower decks, I don't think.
If you notice too, they've got this really tight fitting leather belt that goes around their waist too. It looks like it's about 4 inches wide.
He gets to have some sweets, even though he's an android.
So this young man here who's playing Timothy, his name's Joshua Harris. He is 1 year older than me.
Crazy.
I know. And it's funny because when I watched this episode, I always assume that the kids are younger than me, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like I just assume that the children are just a little younger than myself. But actually, this was not the case here. He was a year older.
Alexander was born in the same year as me, and the Kirsten Dunst is coming up this season as well. And she is the same age as me.
Here's why you know this kid. He was on Dallas from 1985 to 1991.
Means he was super little.
Yep.
But he would have wrapped up in that previous years because 10, 11 years old. Just the right age for watching Star Trek The Next Generation.
Oh, yes. He's done a lot of TV. He was in The Twilight Zone. Wow.
And going back to talking about my 8-year-old nephew, this would have been a fine episode to introduce him to the show with.
I would agree with you on that one.
He would have found it fun, the idea of copying the android.
And all little boys want to be a robot. So
sometimes.
I was a robot for a couple of Halloweens.
I don't think I was ever a robot for Halloween. I did like those things that looked like tin cans, but they had like an elbow joint to them. I'd always put them up my arm over my elbow.
The whatchamacallit, the dryer vent.
Yeah.
And there we just talked over a kind of funny little skit where Timothy's doing these really random left right head movements, and Data's saying, "Wait, I'm not aware that I do this." And while he's saying this, he's moving his head back and forth. So just a nice little nod.
And it's a good with non-neurotypical people, where if you point out something that they do that they're not aware of, well, anybody, you never know how you're perceived by other people.
I find it interesting that Data had to stop and look at the mirror to check his hair before continuing to work on Timothy's hair. You'd think he'd be aware of what his style and look is. You got too much product in your hair, Timmy. If you're going to put any more in there, you need to join a college jam band.
Here's the really crazy thing. If I apply pressure here, 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 and here, I could lift the cap of your skull off your head, just like mine lifts off and not do any damage to you. Don't ask me how I learned it, kid.
Yep. This kid was in Twin Peaks.
Was he?
Yeah. Now I'm going to have to look him up after we record.
I wonder if he was the My Grandson Knows Magic kid.
Ooh, I don't know. See, that whole movie that whole TV series was just really strange.
Did you see the wrap-up series for it?
No.
Oh, great.
So here we go. We're painting on pre-printed. So their art department just made a couple of prints for them to dab finishing touches on. Whoa. There's some energy there.
Yeah.
Trauma work, anybody?
I really like this sequence because this kid is just emulating an android. Is just like gone until he, just kept going and going and going until he was so exhausted that he just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Just like kind of like a dog. Although I do know one person, actually, used to have a roommate that would do that, where he would like come home and be like, literally, he would shut off.
On, off, on, off. Yeah, we've got a mutual friend like that as well. Data's yawning. It looks like he's trying to kiss the air with an open mouth. Oh, I want to see a yodeling Data. We haven't seen that yet. I bet you that dude could yodel.
Yeah, that'll come around whenever they decide they're going to make Data a CGI character, which would not be hard to do because you have so many files of Brent Spiner.
Why they didn't go CGI in Picard is beyond me. They could have totally easily done it. I
think because Brent Spiner didn't want to. I think he has some ownership of the character, and he was like, as long as I'm going to be here, I might as well do that. And he also, look, he was older and fatter in the movies too.
True. Oh, he's out. Look at that. Paint a mustache on his lip. Do it. Ah, and he changed his mind. He thought about it. I could see it in his face. Shall I draw a mustache on this child? His
Like,
parents are dead. Nobody's going to teach him this stuff.
when you were saying that about him just being by himself, it would have been more prudent if he hadn't like fallen for Data, for him to stay with like the O'Briens or something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I just had a wicked idea. So instead of Data rescuing Timothy, it was Riker. And then Riker could start doing these really weird parenting things like he did with his fake alien son from the previous season.
Yeah.
Whereas like, okay, I'm going to teach you how to play this trombone. And here's your fake new mother here, Minuet. And show that he never fully recovered from his trauma. It's like, yeah, I know you got a tough kid. I thought I had a family.
Yeah, but he also would have gotten mad at him when he finally said what it was that happened to the ship.
Oh yeah,
because he's in a fairly affirming environment when he does say that he thinks it's his fault what happened to the ship. Riker would have been like, "You can't break a ship by hitting a panel. It's not possible."
Yeah, like, he kind of lacks that empathy. Okay, B plot's kicking in. They feel impact waves hitting the ship. They're not really sure what's going on.
Yeah, they stuck in there. I don't know why I suddenly have "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" in my head, but
"You're a mean one, Mr. Worf. Your photons are a peel. Your phasers are rusty. Your targ is a little short, Mr. Worf.
My phasers are not rusty." I could see Data with the emotion chip doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing all around him.
I like the foreign language scripts on the wall. Like I said, the little details. It is strange though that how all these classrooms have the observation lounge. They had that in The Child too, if you remember.
Well, you'd have it, but you wouldn't have it be apparent that it was there. You'd have it so parents could observe, and so that Troy could observe and stuff. Troy would be more of a presence at the school, where, because in real life, if you do it this way, it would single kids out even more. Like, oh, he's somebody that Troy's watching. We better stay away from him. But she would, if she was good at her job, she would kind of always be there and talk to all of the kids frequently.
Well, this is a question for military brats out there, and I wish Jim was on this recording. Is that, well, when a new kid shows up and they're just going to be around for a few weeks, how does the school usually treat that stranger kid?
Yeah, the one we got to get Jem back for is the First Duty, which is also this season.
Mm-hmm. This is where Data, he can eat and drink.
Yeah.
I always forget about this. Oh. He's telling a child that he can't eat ice cream.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything more depressing?
Makes me think of AI, where the robot has the spinach eating contest with his brother, and they have to vacuum out his chest cavity. Spinach is for little boys and Popeye.
So Data makes it clear that he will never grow, he will never change.
Which isn't true, and Sung has told him that. Sin has told him as much, and he's kind of surrounded by people that believe that he will grow and change. He's grown and changed since the first season. He's not as literal anymore. The biggest problem, when we've talked about this, is that he would have learned a lot of the stuff that he learns from his crewmates on the Enterprise in previous postings and at the Academy. He really does kind of come into the show as though he were born yesterday, but then you have like his backstory of like, well, I had to put in all these hours on different ships to, get this rank of lieutenant commander. And it would have been harder for him too, because it's like, yeah, you promote the android that knows everything over the actual flesh and blood creature.
You have to ask yourself in an environment like the Federation, specifically Starfleet, where you have different cultures and different ways that people socialize, are soft skills a requirement in your career advancement? I don't know. I mean, Data can, I think someone who was born yesterday, to use your expression, could be promoted to second in command of the ship if they were able to demonstrate that they could meet the bare minimum skills. Because if you look at it now, you'd want your leaders to be charismatic and validating, and they want to emotionally support the people around them. Well, Data doesn't do that. He's just kind of there and tells people what to do. Yet he's the third most senior person on the ship?
Yep. But then you have your guys like on Deep Space Nine, the super intelligent but totally non-socially skilled folks that basically have to live in an institution.
Yes, very true. Now they're shooting into space, and the laser beam phaser beam is being beautifully refracted.
Lasers.
The
doozer.
So Picard is now starting to think that this phenomena is either, maybe he's probably sussing out this is not an attack. He called it a phenomena. Phenomena. So Geordi's little story of the fire in his childhood, originally they were going to use that as a potential telepathic memory invasion for the episode Violations.
Huh. That would have been scary. That episode, I just rewatched it today. I remember not liking that at all the first time I watched it, but except for the ending, I really liked it on this rewatch.
Interesting. I'll have to pick your brain when we record it.
We were attacked.
Oh, here we go. Here's your validating environment.
Yep.
Everybody's standing to the side or behind him, kneeling at his level. And he is saying that he did it. Now, because this is Star Trek, the first thing you might want to ask yourself as Picard is, are you a baby Q? Are you a telepathic monster baby? It's like you have to eliminate all the absurd right along with the real. Oh, look at that cry.
That was a break to commercial where he said that he had done this.
That he killed them all. Oh, there it is. His arm hit the computer panel and the ship was destroyed. This kid is never going to want to interact with technology ever again.
That's true, but the world still needs Luddites.
He'll be that potato farmer where everybody wants real, homegrown, organic potatoes and not.
He can marry a Vulcan woman and raise crops.
Yep. It is logical for you to plow the field. The seed is fertile. I don't like how they resolved his feelings here in a 30-second scene, a minute-long scene.
You would need more than just this. I mean, this would have been a good turning point. But it's like the next time we see, he has to remember everything that was said about what they did to make the ship blow up. which is super hard.
Yeah.
But he gets through. It's like let's just sit and sing "Row, row, row your boat."
Well, I do have to say that they did not properly debrief this child. They would have said, "Okay, tell us some of the things that you heard, that you saw, that you smelled." Like they want to try to get as much as they can from this kid. But he's totally underutilized. At least he's sitting right there on the bridge with Data, and he gives them the magic clue of more shields. But
yeah,
this is one of those where the kid is right and they don't listen until the last possible moment.
At least Picard is learning not to tell him to shut up. But it's Data that's got to do the whole. Yeah, you got to drop the shields, and it's tough because Riker does the right thing. He's like, no, we can't do that. We'll get
because we'll get destroyed. Well, this right here
essentially orders Picard when the safe thing to do would be to order Worf to do it, not to order Picard to give the order. Because he is technically Worf's superior officer.
Yeah, I guess he is.
Worf can't do anything that Riker says that he can't do. But still, Data should have given the order to Worf, not ordered Picard or ordered Picard to give the order.
Yeah, well, it may not look good for television for him to just kind of turn around and kneel on the back of his chair at the science stations and go, "Yep, Worf, go ahead and drop them shields." I do want to.
How fun is this? What this kid gets to do? Because few of the kids that come on here get to like be on the bridge and like interact with all of the stuff.
Oh, and the kid has to learn how to fake move too.
Yeah, and he can't look like he's having fun at all. He's got to do this whole deadly serious thing.
Mm-hmm. That is a pucker moment there on Picard's face. He looks so surprised. No, I do want to say something that is clear here. So even though I say I don't like children episodes too much in Star Trek, one thing is always true is that someone comes through, advocates for the kid when nobody else is listening, and really basically says that the kid is right, that he's validated. If Data wasn't there to listen to Timothy, they would have been killed.
Yeah.
And Mr. Riker here would have if they followed his suggestion, they would have been toast. And this is something that I needed as a child back then, was validation.
Mm-hmm.
And I could often see myself on the Enterprise with the crew, and then whatever problem I had, someone would kind of do this deep dive forensics guess and validate whatever issue I've got going on.
And that was the other thing, is that he also, if he not even if he felt like he destroyed a ship, and now he knows he's responsible for saving one. Yes,
which is great therapy.
Yeah,
so Troy did no work whatsoever in this episode,
other than to make sure that Data and Timothy stuck together. He didn't push that.
I think they should have come out from the beginning that Timothy was obviously lying about the destruction of the ship, and for them to spend about 20 minutes trying to figure out the lie. And it's like, okay, what's true and what was part of the lie, and kind of help process the agony of being responsible for killing your parents. That would have been much more powerful than the 1 minute briefing room conversation, or Picard's ready room conversation of, yes, I did it, I killed them. And then even for Timothy to give the clues, yes, that's right, more shields. Like if they had introduced some of the earlier wave front effects earlier, kind of pushed that back, they could help explain what's going on. They didn't give enough room for solving the mystery, unfortunately.
So there's a a college humor show called Zach Morris's Trash, where they go through an episode of Saved by the Bell and explain how like Zach ruined somebody's life. And then like what was sort of done to redeem Zach with this character, and then it's like, and so this character is okay, and we never see them again. They probably killed themselves. Which is kind of how I feel about Timothy at the end of this. And so Dana says that they're friends, and we never see Timothy again because he probably killed himself. There's her name, Sheila Franklin.
Yes. Oh, that was a fun episode. It's kind of a snoozer, but you know what you just said there, Patrick, really got me thinking. Is you round up all of the collateral damage characters and put them together in one room and talk about their life-altering encounter with the Enterprise and how their lives just were either torn apart or pieced together because of this damn ship. Oh well, it could be like a Lower Decks where they stroll into a bar of all the survivors of the Enterprise and their missions, and they're just kind of railing. It's almost kind of like that the time train on Rick and Morty, if you remember that one.
Yes.
Where it's going around in infinite loops and everybody's reminiscing about their times that they interacted with Rick Sanchez. And
speaking of, you watched the show Infinity Train?
No, I have not. What's it all about?
It's really good.
Oh yeah? What's the premise? Or is it just a train that goes in circles? Long pause.
Oh no, it's so it's a train that is quite long, and each car is like a different environment. But it's a show about reconciliation. Huh. So basically, something happens in your life, like out in the world, and the train shows up, and you get on it, and you have to solve, whatever your problem is. And you're given you have a number printed on your hand, and you have to make the number go down to 0 to be able to get off the train. And Kate Mulgrew was a voice on the show.
No, that's great. That reminds me of an Adventure Time episode where they find this train just going in circles, and each cabin is a different villain they have to vest, I guess. Well, we are totally getting off track. Let's give this episode our review. I would say it's a good 3 out of 5. I never really liked the psychological process work of this show. Troy could always do a better job. I think they could have done a better job tying the action sequences in with the therapy to help kind of liven things up in the trauma processing side of the world. And it makes for good television when someone starts having flashbacks and freaking out. So that's it for me. 3 out of 5. How about you, Pat?
I'll give it 3.5. It's a good intro to who all the characters are. Geordi gets some good speeches. Data does some good stuff. You see Picarding, Rikering. I guess Worf and Crusher are the only ones that get short shrift in it. But yeah, I think it's better than I probably thought it was when I was a kid.
This was an easy week for Gates and Michael. All they had to do is show up for their 1 or 2 scenes and have the rest of the week off. All right, folks. Well, that concludes our episode for today. So make sure to catch us for our next episode. What is it? Violations?
Violations, where they take things a little too far.
Oh, yes. Very true. All right, folks. With that, have a wonderful day. Music provided by LoFiGirl.com. Artists include Tenno, Daydreaming, BVG and Monberg, Insomnia, WYS, Snowman, Bcalm and Banks, Because. Episode cover art created by Matthew Kirschner. Podcast logo and main cover art provided by David Clawwitter. Audio engineering done by Sascha Schaudies.